Hello, my name's Noelle Dumichescu, and I'm going to be presenting on specific learning disability, also known as SLD. This quote here by Albert Einstein really stuck out to me. It states that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I think that our education system is starting to realize that not everybody learns the same way. I have adopted 3 kids from foster care, and they're biologically related to each other. 2 out of the 3 of them have learning disability. And it's been an interesting journey to learn about this and also the different ways that people learn and how I can help them. So I'll be presenting this to you today. So the definition and characteristics. I took the definition from the American Psychiatric Association. They define it as a disorder and one or more of the basic learning processes involved in understanding or in using language, spoken or written, that may manifest significant difficulties affecting the ability to listen, read, speak, write, spell, or do mathematics. So the characteristics of SLD, they come in many different forms, but a couple of them here I'll mention. They're impairments in one or more of the 3 major areas, such as in reading, written expression, and or in math. Often there are emotional challenges, frequently as a byproduct of the academic challenges, which I have experienced this with my kids. There's problems in learning subjects that may impact everyday activities and social interactions. I have also seen the social interaction aspect of it as well. So then we have the types, the different types, and the challenges that come with these types. The one that most of you may have heard of is dyslexia. It's the one that you hear the most about. It has to do with reading disability. It's a difficulty in working with the sounds and linking them to the letter symbols that they represent. Also, difficulty in reading in an automatic fashion with appropriate speed and smoothness. It also includes accurately interpreting the meaning of the reading passages and drawing conclusions where appropriate. Dyscalculia has to do with math, so procedural problems, frequent problems with understanding the math concepts, computing the math problems, and sequencing of complex problem steps. Fact retrieval is included in this as well, where they have a difficulty memorizing the math facts and then being able to retrieve that information when necessary. Dysgraphia has to do with writing, in other words, putting one's thoughts on paper. And there are some subcategories to this also: auditory processing disorder, language processing disorder, nonverbal learning disability, and visual perceptual visual motor deficit. So who has SLD? You cannot necessarily look at somebody and tell if they have this. So here's some facts for you that you may not know. 15% of children that are school age struggle with a learning disability. 80% of those learning disabilities have an impairment in reading, also known as dyslexia. Dyslexia affects 20% of the population. Male and females equally have dyslexia. 2/3 of all the learning disabilities are male. Asian students are underrepresented. Black and Hispanic students are overrepresented. So when you look at these statistics like this, it makes you wonder, why aren't different methods of teaching involved more in the classroom? Everybody can learn from different ways of teaching. So that's one thing that stuck out to me about these statistics. So the causes and then evaluation. The possible causes include neurological mechanisms, in other words, structural brain differences. Genetic influences play a part as well. Environmental causes include toxins, mother's alcohol or drug use during pregnancy, and also low socioeconomic status, including poverty. So you can see from this cycle here, getting the evaluation, having the assessment, that's the beginning part of it. And once that's done, then the goal setting and instruction can begin. As far as the evaluation goes, a non-discriminatory evaluation is suggested with parental consent. They do suggest a variety of assessment tools and strategies. So it's not just a one test per student. It is something that has to be looked at in many different facets. So use of variety of assessment tools and strategies, including more than one assessment, administered by a trained and knowledgeable personnel, and importantly, administered in a language and form which will likely be able to produce accurate information about the student's current levels. So getting that language down is also important. I find this really interesting and important, and I really tried to help people see that inclusiveness and accommodations in the classroom are really the key to helping these students. And as I've stated before, it not only helps these students, it helps all the students in the classroom. So inclusiveness provides benefits for all students that learn within them. Acceptance of differences among students, establishing high standards for all. Approaches that are tailored towards individual students, so not just having one method of teaching for the entire classroom. Matching the student with a peer tutor, I think, is really important, and also equally important, including the student in cooperative learning groups. So that inclusiveness in the classroom with their peers and with the groups really help them to be able to grow in the classroom. So the appropriate accommodations, so this depends on the outcome of the assessment and evaluation, but a few of them that are beneficial are extending test times. Another one would be, excuse me, size. In other words, changing the amount of questions the student is expected to learn. In other words, if you have a test for 20 students for the rest of the class, you could cut this down to the 10 main key questions. Also, smaller class size is important. They're able to work better in a smaller classroom. Difficulty, in other words, allowing an open book test would benefit that student, or allowing the student to use a spell checker. They may know the information perfectly well, but they may not know how to spell it. Input, some things that are included under input are use of cooperative learning, visual displays, and computer-assisted instruction. Now we are coming to the topic of English language learners and SLD. You may wonder, what do these two have to do with each other? Well, they have to do a lot with each other, because sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference if you have an SLD student or if you have an ELL student, or if you have a student who has both SLD and ELL. It can be difficult to tell the difference, but with time, there are some key things that stand out that you can look for. First, you want to start with looking at the history of their native language learning. How does that history look? For the English language learner, are there any challenges within their native language, or is this just an English problem? That's the big key there. For both ELL and SLD, have their parents or teachers ever expressed any concerns, or is this something new? That's something to look at. For SLD, they are later learners of their native language. They have trouble sounding out words in any language, so it's not just something with English. This has to do with even with their native language. You can also notice with SLD students frustration and behavioral problems. So the research-based instructional strategies for teaching literacy and mathematical content. Again, this is just to name a few, but one of the things that really stands out to me the most is the multisensory approach to learning. So this is taking a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different, using the 5 senses that we have and incorporating those senses into the classroom. So the effective interventions involve systematic, intensive, individualized instruction to help the individual use strategies to compensate for their disorder. So literacy involves phonological awareness, decoding skills, comprehension, and fluency. Where with mathematics, you see a multisensory instruction to help kids understand math concepts. So again, these multisensory approach to learning is really important in helping these students. Assistive technology. So here you can see we have the speech to voice recognition, text to speech also. Mind mapping down here helps the student put all their ideas out there in an organized fashion so that they're then able to take that information and work from it. So it helps them to organize. Touch typing, which I added this here. This is from a dyslexia program called Nessie, and I actually use this program with my own kids. It's a really great program. They love it. And this includes touch typing, so you can see they're actually reading here, they're seeing the letters here, then they're typing. So this is a multisensory approach. They hear what is being said, they see. There's a lot going on here with this program. Also, there's smartphones, tablets, apps, handheld devices, and support helps remove the blame from the child and the parents. So it's very helpful to have all these different types of support. Now, one thing I added here, it's a common misconception. A lot of people, I mean to tell you, even my own mother thought that having a learning difficulty means that a student would have low IQ. And this isn't farther from the truth, right? So they may have a learning difficulty, but that does not mean they have a low IQ. They fall in the category of average IQ to above average. There's a lot of well-known people with learning difficulties, like I mentioned earlier, Albert Einstein, John Lennon, the musician, Richard Branson, who's involved in airlines and entrepreneurship, Jennifer Aniston, actress, Bill Gates, very well-known entrepreneur, Tom Cruise, actor, Cher, musician, Leonardo da Vinci, who he's touched on so many different things from science to art, and Steve Jobs, who created Apple. So I just wanted to include that misconception. I think a lot of people have. Additional resources, I included the Parent's Guide to Specific Learning Difficulties, Information, Advice, and Practical Tips. This book by Veronica Bidwell has been helpful for me. So that's why I wanted to include that book first and foremost. There's a couple different websites here I also included for additional resources for you. And here the references, which state the references I used for this presentation. Thank you very much, and I hope that you've learned something here today and that we can continue to help these students in the classroom. Thank you.